We are now entering the panel discussion. We will stay here and not switch this session in the system. And I want to introduce, I also see that we still have Mel with us, so I'm grateful for that. So soon I will pose you a question, but first I also want to introduce another member of the panel, which is Piotr Barczak, who is the Inclusive Circular Economy expert at European Environmental Bureau in Brussels. Piotr, are you with us now? He has been giving us some questions also and communicated here, so he should be maybe backstage still. Meanwhile, Mel, what would you say now, listening to this, and I know there's a lot for us still to cover during these 3 days, but as of now, what do you think that Africa, if you would think of the top 3 things to start looking at straight away and adopt from your experiences of South America?
I think that one of the things that Latin America and Africa have in common is large developed networks of informal recyclers, and all Latin American countries have written their waste laws to include the requirement that extended producer responsibility schemes must include the informal recycler cooperatives. Each country does that differently, but I think that that's something that African countries could look at the different versions of that in Latin America. And I'm happy to share if anybody wants to reach out on a karma pro bono basis. If anybody wants to know what any country in Latin America does with the informal recyclers, I think that would be key. And then second, to Antoine's point, to Mr. Garnier's point, I think you'd have to look at how to avoid free rider problems. So in Latin America, they had this sectoral agreement and only some industries came forward. So we had to pass a second decree saying everybody has to be a member of the EPR schemes as they're developed, even if you decided not to join. They brought them in with a mandatory. So as soon as an EPR scheme is formed, if you've got your PRO formed, you could come in with a secondary decree that says, now everybody has to join that. So that you don't have, the disincentive to not participate. That's 2 things we might take away.
Thank you so much. That's valuable. So do we have Piotr with us now? No. Is Piotr backstage? No. Oh, we lost him. I'm sorry about that. We go on. Any comments from any of the panelists of what Melissa has said? Of course, feel free to, you could just raise your hand physically. I see you, if you want. Otherwise, I was also thinking Ibukun, now as Africa is on the roadmap for the EPR, what do you see the benefits? And also, as you listen to what Mel is sharing from South America, what do you take with you here?
Yeah, so for me, I think the benefits of having an EPR in Africa is, one, we'll be able to shift from the rudimentary approach that the informal sector utilizes in managing e-waste now, which is very hazardous to the environment. We'll be able to shift to more formal recycling practices that will be good for the environment and the people in the continent as a whole, and it will also help to reduce substandard products as a whole. And then, for me, it will also provide job opportunities for people who will be able to be engaged in that recycling value chain. Yeah,
definitely. That's great. Any other? I saw Luca, you were holding your hand.
Yes. Can you hear me? For Melissa, about the informal sector inclusion, may I ask you if you have some examples, some case?
What that means is, for example, that if you have, we see it much more in Brazil, they handled each stream differently. In electronics, it's been more complex because it is a much more complex waste, and the informal recyclers may not have the tools, the training, and the education to handle it safely. But in the separate packaging decree, in the packaging extended producer responsibility scheme, the producers, the Coca-Cola and all of the big companies, actually have to engage the cooperatives of informal recyclers and have them be part of the collection scheme to go out and collect the packaging waste. So they are required by the sectoral agreement to work with and not exclude the informal recyclers, so that we don't have opportunities and economic realities. In Latin America, we have people working in the informal sector, and EPR could be seen as taking away valuable resources from them. So instead, we include them in that. And the EPR schemes are required to work with informal cooperatives and give them organization and levels of education, dignity, training, facilities, tools, make it safer and more profitable for them.
It's interesting. I've seen some examples in Europe where informal actors are engaged just to report an aggregate amount of we collected and we managed. I like the approach of Latin America, where EPR schemes does not only get numbers from the informal sector, but also working with them.
There are actually
Giving
agreements
education.
signed. Absolutely, agreements signed. I was talking to the former head of Coca-Cola, who did amazing things in Latin America, and she was telling me, she's European herself, she thinks that Latin America has done the best job of including informal recyclers in EPR schemes from all the legislation around the world that she's seen in packaging and plastic.
Great, thank you. Moving forward there, we have a question for Philip from Juma Oro, who wondered, you mentioned in your presentation that there is need for a coordinating body.
Yeah.
I wish to understand what you mean by this, given that we already have Weee Forum. And I want to also address and say that Weee Forum is, of course, coordinating a lot of PROs, and there are other similar bodies around the world also coordinating PROs.
Indeed, there are, but I would maintain that none of them are as good as the Weee Forum, of course.
Of course not. Now when you're with us.
But the difference is that if you're looking at what the Weee Forum does, the Weee Forum is not a coordination body in that sense of the word. It is a membership organization of producer responsibility organizations from every country around the world. We're there to share knowledge, to improve collection, to generally improve the system on behalf of the producer members, so the Sonys, the Panasonics, etc. of this world, for our members. The coordination body that I mentioned is a national body that coordinates the system activities of that country. So you would have the municipalities, the retailers, the producer responsibility organizations in that country who are members of the coordination body that effectively link together all of the elements of the take-back system, the infrastructure, the collection network. It's a different entity altogether, and it's a national body. Rather like in Italy, for example, Luca, you have a clearinghouse system as a coordinating body between the 13 systems. So it's that kind of a system, totally separate to the Weee Forum. The Weee Forum does a completely different activity.
Thank you. That clarified very well. And to me, it sounds like a very wonderful world if we all would have such a coordinating body in each country.
There is nothing better if everyone has a seat at the table, as long as the table isn't too big.
Exactly. Thank you. So moving forward now, I'm still calling for Piotr. I don't know. We had a conversation here also, but no. All right. Sorry about that. I was wondering, Now, when we go to coordination, and also what you mentioned, Antoine, for the solar sector, are we then doing enough or quickly enough? Do you see that it is moving towards a coordinating within your sector? And this goes with you, Rebecca, as well. Is something happening? First Antoine and then Rebecca.
Well, on my side, I have the feeling that something is moving. I would say, something is boiling, is coming forward. There are different initiatives. There are funding initiatives. There are industrial initiatives moving. Maybe more so in East Africa, and it's normal because East Africa has been a pioneer. In the solar sector, and has probably 10 years in advance compared to West African markets where we work. So it's pretty natural that it begins there. But we're not quite there yet. I mean, I think from our position, we have the feeling that it's just the premises.
Yeah, I'll add to that as well. So, as GOGLA, we are actually trying to do as much as we can to bring the industry together to collaborate and coordinate on this. And as I said, one of the things we're starting in Kenya is a kind of collective, a PRO for the industry. But we don't operate in a vacuum. So we need, as much as we can coordinate and collaborate as an industry, we need the enablers to be in place as well. So, for us, it's what we need to see is more investment in infrastructure and, enable the, regional cooperation to enable transboundary shipments where the facilities do exist so that they're accessible to more markets, more companies. And, the very basic things that, countries could do to help on this is to increase and implement quality standards for importations as well. So for that, it's, I think there's coordination and cooperation on lots of levels, not just on kind of EPR and end of life management as well. But yeah, it's definitely happening. But like Antoine said, it's the start of something, and I think we see it growing momentum and a lot more coming in the future.
Thank you. Yes, and I also believe what we talked about with green procurement earlier, it was mentioned in the opening remarks, when anyone who orders for some sort of system, now sometimes it's a household, which is not a procurement per se, but in general, when we have also these bigger deployments that we actually ask for recyclable products, high quality. I know you mentioned also Ibukun to get rid of these substandard items. That is so true. So then we will move even further. We have a question. So would we then have a coordinating body at an international level? This is very interesting. And we know it's hard enough in a country sometimes, but
an international coordinating body would be absolutely fantastic. But let's first of all roll it out country by country, I think, and then who knows, we may have the United Nations of Weee one day.
We can initiate.
I think we'd have to have Melissa as the Secretary General, though.
Yeah, that's true. So we are doing our best in sending Piotr a new link because he was actually only invited to the panel discussion. He has the link, so he will join as soon as possible. Very sorry about that. We had another question. No, this is not that.
Simone, can you hear me?
Yes, Melissa. Any
I just
comments?
wanted to point out, one more thing. I thought it was so interesting. You were talking about, what to do, how to get higher quality products or make sure that they're managed well. That's where you can do like Brazil and introduce the concept that it can't be imported unless the importer can show that that product belongs to a EPR scheme, and they have to give on their importer certification where that good is going to go at the end. Oh, I'll step down now.
Now we have Piotr Barczak with us from the European Environmental Bureau. I'm terribly sorry about the technical difficulties, but thanks for bearing with us and communicating in all ways possible. Piotr, I know you probably have some burning questions from the NGO side and the environmental side.
Yes, thank you. Asante sana.
The floor is yours now to ask questions or come with comments of what you've been hearing.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Asante sana, thank you very much. Congratulations to Weee Center for organizing this first African e-waste sustainable conference. Yes, the table is growing. I was listening to your conversation. I couldn't just join. But I would like to represent here another important stakeholder. Some of you have mentioned about reuse and repair, but not many. It very often goes out of the discussion. We tend to focus on recycling so much. Melissa, you mentioned about informal sector, indeed, and reuse. I want to share three points. So about repair activities, how these have to be included in setting EPR schemes. About eco-modulation, I will just explain briefly on what's happening in Europe about that, and about EPR fees following the product. Even if it goes away to Africa or to Asia, it has to follow the product. So first, repair activities. In the discussion, I shared a few links about the potential of reuse and repair for the climate. Just one number here. If we extend the lifetime of electronic products by 1 year, vacuum cleaners, washing machines, smartphones, notebooks, we have found out in our report that we will save only in EU 4 megatons of CO2 equivalent per year. That means 2 million cars taken out from the road every year by 1 year. That's why repair and reuse is so important, and it's often kind of neglected or overlooked when we look in setting EPR schemes. Africa has a lot of gaps in policies, true, but it is also a potential that we can set it right. When EPR is going to be set in many countries, and I lived and worked in a few countries in Africa, and I know it will not be easy, but the context of reuse activities, the social networks that work on reuse and repair, and in Africa, this is the main potential. Okay, maybe we don't have heavy industry and infrastructure to set up recycling. It will come, but there is a low-hanging fruit to catch already now, which is repair. And you will all who live in Africa or in Asia, in developing countries, you know that repair activities are welcomed. There are skills, and this is a low-hanging fruit to catch, which will bring benefits, not only environmental and climate, but also jobs and inclusion. So that's what we call inclusive EPR systems, inclusive circular economy. It will never be inclusive. It will never be sustainable if the reuse activities, if the social aspects are not taken into account. So that's why we have in Europe a lot of focus, including at political high level, European Green Deal. It's called Right to Repair. I know it's also happening in the US. Biden has suggested such legislation. In Europe, it's already much more developed. It means giving access to repair manuals, to spare parts, making upgrades of electronics easier, and basically cutting the planned obsolescence away. So there are other national initiatives, such as in France, for example, the reparability index, so that consumers know when they purchase what is the level index, what is the grade of reparability of certain products. So just to recap, when setting up EPR systems now, especially in African countries, in Asia, in Brazil, the aspect of repair has to be included by setting reuse targets. Because if we don't set reuse targets, all the focus will go for recycling, and that's what I'm hearing during this panel, unfortunately as well. Everything about recycling, but where is the first in the hierarchy? Reuse. So eco-modulation is part of it. Before we really boost recycling and reuse and eco-design of products, eco-modulation of EPR fee can play a role. So it is an economic tool which will incentivize better design. So producers who avoid toxic substances, who have longer warranties, they have to pay a lower EPR fee, as opposed to those who do not make any effort. And then the last part I wanted just to mention is that, yes, there is still electronic waste that is sent from developing countries to developed countries to developing countries. It is forbidden because of Basel Convention, but there is an organization called Basel Action Network that has proved, they made experiences where they show that the so-called reusable items, when they are shipped to Africa, they open the container of those items labeled as reusable, but they are not reusable at all. We call it reuse. I forgot now. The loophole, the reuse loophole. So there is illegal shipment of waste that is not recyclable or not repairable, but is sent as reuse. So this has to stop, and this has to be better monitored. But also, transfer. I finish now. The transfer of EPR fees. Yes, we in Europe we pay EPR whenever we purchase a product. We have to pay, and we actually should pay more. But this EPR fee stays in Europe. Why? If the product goes to Africa or somewhere, the fee has to follow to finance repair activities and to finance recycling. And it's not happening. That's why we are just putting those countries in a big, difficult situation, also financial. And that's why the collection is so low, what Luca just mentioned as well. So these were my points. Please, when you set up EPR fees, think about setting it correctly. Avoid the mistake that we did here in Europe, and go choose the best examples from France, from Spain, from Flanders, where they set up obligatory, mandatory reuse targets. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Piotr, for touching on so many important points. And now we are running out of time a bit, but I want everyone to at least have 1 or 2 sentences as a final comment. I would love to comment myself. I'll hold my tongue. Please, Ibukun, start with you.
Okay, so mine is a question also to Piotr, but it's actually in terms of reuse now. In Africa, we already practice a lot of repair. You know, a lot of people naturally repair because that's what we've known. But a lot of people lately get discouraged from repairing items because they don't get it repaired properly. They will have paid for that service, and then the products come back not repaired. So how can producers get involved in, empowering repairers to be able to, repair appropriately? It's something I think we need to be looking at, and also in setting up the EPR system. So will producers now set up recycling and repair facilities themselves, or what's the procedure that's most appropriate?
Okay, I thank you, Ibukun. Honestly, by observing producers, they have no interest, very little interest. For many years, they have not made repairable products. Their modus operandi is to make products obsolete, and that's what they are doing. The maximum they want to do is recycling. So yes, there must be regulation from the government that must address this, must give access to social repair networks to the waste before even recyclers come in, so that they can get out the most valuable items. So yeah, the action has to be regulatory. I would not count on producers' initiative here.
Okay. Thank you.
We're not going to. So thank you. Lovely. Thank you. Dr. Morton, closing remark, and together I want all of you to have, if you want, let me know.
Sure. Yeah. No. I'm very happy. First of all, I think many people will perhaps look at the African continent and say that collection rates are very low and that's a bad thing. And I think it's a wonderful opportunity. Yeah, just look at how much more can be done, and just in many ways, you can start with not a blank sheet of paper, but a blank sheet of paper overlaid with the good and the bad experiences from around the world. So, as Melissa has said, in Brazil, you have a huge country, you have difficult to access terrains, you have now a very good structured system. We're seeing similar things start to happen in India, an enormous continent with lots of people. So I think by taking those examples and learning from them and remembering that this isn't really or shouldn't be a competitive environment. This is about the environment. And if everyone understands that and that there is a cost of not doing things, then I think the African continent has a fantastic opportunity here.
Thanks. That sounds wonderful. Any other who wants to have a closing remark? No? I would like...
I'll jump in and just say, I think more events like this, more kind of bringing the community together is really good. So congratulations for setting this up. And yeah, just well-designed regulations that are inclusive and designed with industry to get everyone on board from the beginning, so that they're supportive and well implemented as well. And then investment for all the supporting things that go with that as well. So infrastructure, more support for the companies that need to kind of implement these things as well.
Thank you. And Melissa?
I just wanted to add quickly that I work strictly with Latin America, but we have had to realize that we can be inspired by the European Union, but it has to be built to fit within our realities as regulators. So look at the EU, get inspired, look at Canada, get inspired wherever you want. But it has to be built to fit within the Kenyan reality, within the Nigerian reality, within the Senegalese reality. So don't try to just take the EU and impose it right on you. In many ways, you can jump ahead, as Dr. Morton was pointing out. You don't have to start back at the same state. And you can include repair, which we don't do enough of. In Latin America, repair is not part of EPR schemes or regulations. That's where we can teach you about including informal recyclers and learn about repair. I'm taking notes.
So much. That's great. I just want to follow up on what Piotr said, because first of all, the reuse targets, yes, I see it in my own home country that we have collection targets of tonnages, etc. We need to skew it towards not only recycling but reuse, which also leads us into safe and new ways of transporting and collecting, instead of dropping something into a big container so it breaks as it hits the floor or anything else there. We need to start placing things and using more people's power and skills and man labor, which is also beneficial for, let's say, countries where labor is cheap and where we are eager and dying to have more job opportunities. So finding these new schemes, I think, is key. And then I wanted to also, when we talk about the right to repair, where more manuals and spare parts and repair tools will be required from the manufacturers, it will also help the schools to actually have small repair groups or sessions in science class, etc., because it's going to be available. So the kids can actually learn quicker and easier without, So that was my comments on that. I want to thank you all for a very nice session, but we have a poll before we're going to end totally. If you go to the right in the panel, we have a poll question, which is, hello, how did you find this session? was it impactful? So I would love for everyone who is watching to go to the right session where it says polls and answer what you think and submit your vote. And then we will release results. What if everybody says bad?
We have big room for improvement.
So we will release the results very soon. And meanwhile, as we wait for the results, I would like to thank Luca, Ibukun, Philip, and the whole Weee Forum for helping us also here in Kenya as we are working for a PRO setup. So take the opportunity of thanking you once we're all here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're not by far done, but we're on our way, and many thanks to you. So now we will see what the poll says. Maybe it's just... So 54% finds this insightful, 38% great, 8% good, and nobody thinks we could do it better or that it's bad. So we'll take that as a good result for today's session, the first one. And thank you again, everyone. I hope now people take the opportunity in the lobby or in the speaker section on the left-hand side to get in touch with you and send you messages. Otherwise, we will also compile, of course, what has been said and who has been the speaker. So thank you all, and we will go with session number 4 very soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a great Wednesday, and continue listening, of course, if you, yeah.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.